Have you ever been at a party watching people bounce between small talk like it's a sport, and you're standing there thinking, so, are we ever going to talk about something real? Or are we just going to keep trading weather updates until we die? Someone's like, so, what do you do? And you answer, and then they say, nice. And that's it. Conversation over. It ends like a movie with no ending. Meanwhile, your brain is itching, you want to ask the forbidden questions. The ones that instantly change the room temperature. What are you afraid of right now? What did your childhood teach you about love? What's the story you've been living inside without realizing it? And you're not trying to be dramatic. You're not trying to be intense. You're just hungry. If you love deep conversations, you know exactly what I mean. The moment someone finally drops a real thought, your eyes wake up, your shoulders relax, your whole nervous system goes, ah, there you are. And the common assumption is that people who crave deep conversations are overthinkers, or depressed, or trying to sound smart, or they secretly hate fun. But psychologically, loving depth is often about something else. It's about how your brain finds safety. For some people, safety is jokes, noise, distraction. For others, safety is meaning. Depth isn't just a preference, it's a regulation style. Let me show you why. Imagine your mind like a radio. Some people keep their radio on pop hits. Light, catchy, simple. It's fun. It keeps the vibe moving, but some of us are tuned to a different station. We're on the late night signal. The one that plays slower songs and asks questions that feel like they were written specifically for your soul. If you're a deep conversation person, your brain is constantly scanning for that frequency. Not because you can't enjoy light moments. You can laugh. You can joke. You can do memes and nonsense like everyone else. But you want the moment where the mask drops, because that moment feels like truth. And truth feels calming. One reason deep conversations feel so good is because they reduce ambiguity. Small talk is socially useful, but it's vague. It's like eating cotton candy. It dissolves instantly, and you're hungry again. Deep talk is more like a real meal. It gives you structure. It tells you who someone is. It tells you what they value. It tells you what's real between you. If your brain is sensitive to uncertainty, depth can feel like control. Not control over people, but control over meaning. It helps you map the terrain. It helps you understand where you stand. Psychologists sometimes describe a personality trait called need for cognition, basically how much you enjoy thinking deeply. People high in this trait tend to prefer complex ideas, reflection, and meaning making. But there's also a more emotional version. Some people have a need for emotional clarity. They feel better when things are named, when feelings are spoken, when motivations are understood. If you're that person, deep conversation isn't extra, it's oxygen. Now let's talk about the bonding side because this matters. Human connection is built through self-disclosure. I think there's research showing that when people share personal thoughts and feelings at an appropriate pace, closeness increases. Deep conversation people often intuitively know this. They know that the fastest way to feel connected isn't to talk about things, it's to talk about selves. And when you finally find someone who can go there with you, it feels like finding clean water after a long day. You think, finally, someone who speaks my language. But here's where it gets interesting. The love of deep conversation often comes from one of two places. Either it's your nature or it's your adaptation. For some people, depth is natural. They're high in openness, another personality trait linked to curiosity, imagination, and interest in ideas. They like nuance. They like layers. They don't enjoy shallow because their mind naturally goes deeper. For others, depth is learned. If you grew up in an environment where you had to read people, where emotional subtext mattered, where moods shifted and you had to understand what was really happening, you become a depth reader. You learn to search for meaning because meaning helps you stay safe. Some people call this hypervigilance, but it's not always panic. Sometimes it looks like being extremely perceptive. You notice tone changes. You notice what people don't say. You notice contradictions. You notice emotional patterns. And once your brain learns to scan for what's real beneath the surface, small talk can feel fake. Not because it is fake, but because it isn't enough to satisfy your nervous system's need to understand. So you crave depth. Not because you're too serious, because your system wants reality. Now there's another layer, identity. Some people love deep conversations because it's where they feel most like themselves. When the conversation is light, they feel like they're performing. They're smiling, nodding, playing along, but it feels like wearing a costume. Depth feels like taking the costume off. It's where their intelligence shows up, their empathy, their complexity, their humor too, because deep conversations can be hilarious when you're safe enough to be honest. It's like some people are funny in the shallow end. Deep people are funny in the deep end. They'll hit you with a joke and an existential truth in the same breath. Now let's talk about why deep talk feels regulating. When you talk about something meaningful, your brain slows down. You're not chasing dopamine hits from constant novelty. You're focusing, reflecting, connecting dots. In a world that's constantly pulling your attention apart, depth is one of the few things that pulls you back together. It's like the difference between scrolling 100 short videos and watching one movie that changes your perspective. Your nervous system can feel the difference. And for people who overthink, deep conversation can actually quiet the mind. Because instead of spinning alone, you're processing out loud with someone. You're making meaning in real time. That can be incredibly soothing. But, and this is important, there's a shadow side. Sometimes the love of deep conversations is also a way to avoid being present. Sometimes we use depth as an escape. We go into big topics because big topics are safer than simple feelings. We'd rather analyze the meaning of life than admit we're lonely on Tuesday night. We'd rather talk about everyone's attachment style than say, I miss you. Depth can be intimacy, but depth can also be distance disguised as intimacy. Because talking about emotions isn't the same as feeling them. And if you're a deep conversation person, you've probably met someone like this. They can talk about trauma, psychology, philosophy, and relationships for hours. But they're strangely hard to truly connect with. They're deep, but not open. That's when depth becomes armor. It's a way to stay in the mind because the mind feels safer than the heart. So, a good question to ask yourself is, do you love deep conversations because they connect you or because they protect you? If you feel more alive after a deep conversation, more connected, more grounded, that's connection. If you feel drained, wired, or like you just ran a marathon in your head, that might be protection. That might be your brain using depth as a coping strategy. And again, there's no shame in that. It's just information. Another thing deep conversation people often struggle with is timing. You've probably experienced the awkward moment where you ask a slightly deeper question and someone looks at you like you just pulled a therapy couch out of your pocket. Because not everyone is built for depth on demand. Some people need trust first, some people need time, some people genuinely prefer lightness. And that's not a flaw. Their nervous system regulates through simplicity and humor. Depth can feel heavy to them. So part of being a healthy deep conversation person is learning pacing. Depth is powerful. Powerful things need timing. Think of it like spice. A little spice makes food amazing. Too much spice too fast and you ruin the whole meal. So you learn to offer depth, not force it. You listen for cues. You test the waters. You ask one real question and see if they meet you there. If they don't, you don't shame them. You just adjust. Because depth without consent can feel invasive, and you wouldn't want someone to invade you either. Now here's the beautiful reframe I want to leave you with. If you love deep conversations, it probably means you have a mind that searches for meaning, a heart that wants honesty, a nervous system that relaxes when things are real. You're not too intense. You're not too much. You're tuned to authenticity. And that's a gift in a world that often rewards surface. The goal isn't to become shallow. The goal isn't to stop caring. The goal is to learn how to use your depth well, to find people who speak your language, to build relationships where deep isn't rare, it's normal, and to remember that depth isn't only found in heavy topics. Sometimes the deepest thing you can do is tell the truth simply. I'm not okay. I'm proud of you. I miss you. I'm scared. I need you. Those aren't philosophical, they're real. So if you're a deep conversation person, tell me in the comments. What's your favorite kind of deep conversation? Love, purpose, childhood, meaning, fear, goals, the universe, human behavior? And what's the question you wish people asked you more often? Subscribe if you want more videos like this, where we take a personality trait and translate it into something you can understand without judging yourself. Because your mind isn't random. It's wired for something. And once you understand it, you can build a life that fits it.